and his company Chandbro belonged to the Associated General Contractors of America, which actually filed a lawsuit to try to prevent this new rule from coming into effect. The judge presiding dismissed the case. He was appointed by none other than Donald J. Trump. And let me read what he said. None of the individual plaintiffs can specify what those projects are that might be harmed, where they'd take place, or the basis for their certainty, which we've heard here today, that such projects will require a PLA. Furthermore, the individual plaintiffs' declarations are belied by their histories of actual federal contracting practices. And without such a showing, he said, there is no basis to believe the PLA rule would impact their businesses. That's the ruling of the judge under a lawsuit brought by that group, including, well, your company, Mr. Dreyer, is a member of that group. Mr. Snyder, you heard gentleman next to you say, with this rule in place, we're going to be prevented from actually bidding on federal work, and we've got a long history of doing just that. Then I heard your testimony, and you gave a long list of federal work you've done, and you've done it with PLAs. How come you can make it work and others apparently speculate they can't?
I certainly can't speak for any other business, but we have found through the process of doing this that there is a step that goes into this collective process of finding out what works best for the project and working with partners that are going to be representing employees in the workforce to come in and weigh in on what those issues are that are going to make that successful. I'm not sure why it would be more difficult for someone else to go and do the exact same thing. There are thousands of other employers that do what we do. I just happen to be the one sitting here talking with you today. And so, you know, I think the numbers of cost and schedule and the ability to staff projects speak for itself.
And just to be clear about your testimony here today, it's your testimony that your company, going back to 1901, has in fact used PLAs as an effective tool successfully, and you have found it to be a felicitous relationship facilitating business. Is that accurate?
Sure. We compete on a daily basis with open shop contractors. That doesn't prevent us from bidding. We compete in right-to-work states and work in them every day. It is our preferred method of performing work. We have found it to be the most efficient and cost-effective way to do work.
And are you aware, in fact, of the OMB letter for the record with respect to the implementation of this that says, makes clear that union and non-union workers will be considered for and work on federal PLA projects?
That's correct. Our understanding is that the federal government cannot exclude non-union workers from participation in the process. In fact, they're prohibited from doing so.
I ask unanimous consent to enter that letter into the record.
Without objection.
And is it further your testimony, if I heard you correctly, independent of your own company, though your experience would mirror this, that there's actually compiled data empirically demonstrating that PLA projects actually tend to come in lower in the cost estimate than non-PLA projects in terms of labor especially. Is that correct?
There are studies that indicate that in the broadest, most widely recognized study was not specific to project labor agreements, but collective bargaining agreements in general. And that was commissioned by the Mechanical Contractors Association through IPA.
So not just your company, but industry-wide, that's what they found?
That's correct.
And would you say that PLAs, in your experience, tend to smooth out both labor contracts and costs and come in a better time frame? Certainly that was my experience. I mean, I literally had the experience of the Silver Line. It was bifurcated. We had phase one, we had phase two. Phase one was a PLA project, and it came in pretty much on budget and on time. Phase two was horribly delayed by years with lots of cost overruns. And it was a deliberate political decision, not an economic decision, to do that in phase two because we had a change in the governorship in Richmond, Virginia. Your comment.
That's our experience and from the IPA study. Projects that are short on skilled labor are twice as likely to have 10% or higher cost overrun and more likely to have schedule slip of 25% or more.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I would ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the U.S. District Court ruling from the Western District of Louisiana, to which I made reference earlier.
Without
And
objection.
I thank the Chair. And finally, I would ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the letter from the Association of Union Constructors and more than 1,700 members in support of project labor agreements.
Without objection.
I thank the Chair, and I yield back.
Votes have been called, and the chair declares the committee in recess, subject to the call